Hello there everyone and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today I'm going to be sharing with you this really cute card using some really soft stenciling on some Kraft cardstock and a really cool background technique as well. So to start with, I am using the Soft Blossoms 3D embossing folder from Altenew, and you can see just how pretty this is here. I have a piece of Kraft cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just going to kind of manipulate where I want the flowers to emboss on that little panel that we have there. And then I'm just going to run that through my embossing machine or your die cutting machine. And you can see just how pretty that does look, just embossed as it is. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the simple colouring stencil for this set and I'm just going to add a little bit of subtle colouring. I am using the Coral Bliss ink and a mini ink blending tool, and I'm just adding that ink right at the base of the petals. So I'm starting the ink blending on my stencil and then just kind of pushing that ink towards the tips of the petals, but I'm only going halfway up. I don't want to colour that Kraft cardstock entirely that we have. We're just kind of just adding a little bit of shading just to the bottom. The Kraft cardstock itself we're using as the base colour, and then we're just adding the shadow with the ink that we have here. So once I've finished with the first stencil, I'm just going to remove that one and add in the second one into place. And we're going to just do the same technique as we did before. So we're using that mini ink blending tool, or you could use a smaller one or even a larger one. It's completely up to you. And we're just adding a little bit of kind of the aura of the colour just at the base or within the kind of cup of the flower to add that really pretty shading that we have. So once we have finished with stencil number 2, we're going to do exactly the same with stencil number 3. You just need to make sure that you do have your stencil the right way around so it just easily and quickly pop in to the right place on your embossed image. Again, same as before, we're just using that Coral Bliss ink to add in that really gentle shading just to those flower petals at the base of them. Once that's done, we can then move ahead to stencil number 4. Now this has all of the leaves on, and you're just going to want to kind of rotate that into place and just make sure that all of the images are in the correct place before you do start your stenciling. I am using the Sea Forest ink here. This is a really beautiful kind of earthy green tone. And I'm just doing the same as I did for the petals because I'm just adding a little bit of this ink just at the base of the leaves, and again using the Kraft cardstock itself as the kind of overall colour of the images that we have here. So once I have finished adding in that subtle shading, I can then remove the stencils. All you need to do is just run those through some clean water and that will clean them off. To add in the little branches or the stems that we have, I am using the Olive Artist marker from Altenew. I'm just using the bullet nib on this one. I do find that it's easier because it's really kind of sturdy just to get in those little fine lines that we have for these really pretty little stems. Now, I could have used this little artist marker that I have here to add in the stamen that we have on the center of the flowers, but I did want to add some beautiful gold accents to this card as well as the background. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the 2-in-1 precision glue pen, and you can see that I'm kind of working off the cardstock to the side of me. What I've done is I've decanted a little bit of the ink, glue onto that cardstock, and I'm kind of picking that up with the nib and then applying that into place onto the embossed image. Reason why I'm doing this and not directly onto the image itself is because the image is embossed and I don't want to lose any of that embossing by kind of pressing too hard with the nib on this glue pen. So that's why I'm adding it on to the side and then transferring it on. As you can see, for the little dots that I'm adding around the outside edge and the background, I am doing that directly onto the cardstock. And what I'm doing for these little dots is I'm adding a lot of them kind of concentrated into the center and around the image, but then kind of sparsing those out as I go further towards the edge of the cardstock. Once I'm happy with the amount of dots that I have there, I did leave this dry. You do want this glue to be dry before you move on to the next step. So the next step is the foil. So I have some of the brass foil from Altenew, and I'm just going to trim a little bit of this. This is also a great technique to kind of use the waste that you have from hot foiling. So if you have lots of hot foiling images that you've already done and you kind of kept that foil over to the side to use the rest of it, this is a great technique to kind of get rid of some of that waste that you have. So you're essentially just using or recycling it. And what I'm doing is I'm just popping that on top of the glue, which is nice and sticky now. It's not overly sticky, it's kind of tacky. And what that's going to do is going to grab on to the foil that we have here, and that is going to be essentially what keeps it in place. I am rubbing really gently when I'm doing this right over. You don't need to put too much pressure on it. You don't want to put too much pressure on it as well, because we do have that embossing that we don't want to squish down. So as you can see, I just keep moving the foil and just kind of picking up the various points of that glue that has been missed. So again, like I said, if you do have lots of waste, is a great way to use it up, because all you need to do is just keep moving it around. It doesn't matter if you kind of overlay it too much as well, and you can see just how pretty that does look there. For my sentiments, I'm going to be using the Everyday Sentiments hot foil plate, and I've just have them on my hot foiling machine, and I have let them come up to temperature. I'm then going to add some of the brass foil, shiny side down, and I'm going to take another piece of the Kraft cardstock. I do have to add shims into my machine to make it foil nice, but don't use shims if you don't need to. If you find that you're forcing it through your die cutting machine, you have too many shims in there, and please remove some. We do not want you kind of damaging your machine. Now, I didn't add enough shims this time round, but I do like the kind of vintage look that I have on this center one. So I am going to use the one that does say hello. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some large scissors and I'm just going to cut around the outside edge. I am leaving a small border like you would with a die cut, just around the perimeter of the foiled image. You can see that using large scissors really does help with kind of getting a really nice straight line when you are doing it on circular elements. So once that's done, I've took my panel from before, and I did trim this down 1/4 inch on on one of the sides, and then the bottom. So I have a small border around the outside edge when I pop this onto an A2 card base. I am using a white A2 card base just to add a little more softness to this card design. And I'm just popping that up using some of the foam tape from Altenew. Now I'm going to take my sentiment, and I do play around with where I want this to go before attaching it. I then wanted a little bit more texture to this one. So I have some of the gold thread from Altenew, and I've just wrapped that around my fingers. Just going to pop that into place where I want it to be. I'm not worrying too much, but I do want to kind of trap those end pieces under the adhesive. So I'm kind of putting those towards the center of that little nest of thread that I have there. Add a little bit of the foam tape behind the sentiment that we've just cut out. I can then remove the backing, and this is what's going to trap that thread between the sentiment and the card base. So that is just going to adhere it all down nicely. And here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've liked the techniques involved too. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye. Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.